and there's a lot of them. So the first set of minutes is April 6, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Steve. I move that we approve those minutes, April 6, 2020, the special meeting.
So Steve's got the motion.
I'll second.
Is there a second?
Rhonda Rooney will second, please.
Rhonda's got the second. Any changes to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, this one carries 6-0. Next is April 16. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second that.
So Jim, that means you got the motion. Anybody got the second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second it, Rob Warch.
So Jim's got the motion. Rob Ward says the second. Any changes to these minutes?
This is Steve Herbert, Board of Finance. I noticed on the second page, paragraph 10, and I didn't get a chance to actually listen to the meeting, but listen to the recording of the meeting. But it says members, it's near the last sentence in the paragraph, members of the Board of Finance added evidence that the revaluation has so resulted. I just don't know what that means exactly. I think it probably should be deleted.
Okay. So we'll ask Dottie to take a look at that and delete if it was written in error.
Or maybe it had some other meaning. Again, I didn't go back and re-listen to the meeting.
Well, and that's, so delete if it was in error or clarify if there was some purpose to it. How's that? So any other changes to these minutes? Okay, all in favor of accepted the minutes with the changes that Steve suggested, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, that's 6-0. So we'll go to April 20. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the April 20 minutes?
This is Steve. I'll make that motion.
Steve's got the motion.
Rob Mann.
Elevates up. Oh,
Yep, sounds like Rob Mann has the second. Any changes to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, this carries 6-0. So then we'll move on to April 23. It looks like that's a special meeting that was canceled. So I guess I'm confused. I don't think there's any minutes from a special meeting that was canceled because the meeting never took place, right? So we'll move on to April 27. Does someone want to make a motion to accept the April 27 minutes?
I'll make a motion to second that.
Jim's got the motion.
Rob Mann, I'll second it.
Rod Mann has the second. Any changes to these minutes? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? So this carries 6-0. April 30th. Does someone want to make a motion to accept the April 30th minutes?
I'll make a motion to second that.
Jim's got the motion.
I'll second it.
Rhonda's got the second. Any changes to these minutes? April 30th. All right, hearing none. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, this carries 6-0. May 4th. Does someone want to make a motion to accept the May 4th minutes?
I'll make a motion to second, to accept those minutes.
Jim's got the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Steve.
Steve's got the second. Any changes to the May 4th minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the May 4th minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 6-0. May 7th, does someone want to make a motion to accept the May 7th minutes?
I'll make a motion to second those minutes.
Jim, so Jim, you've got the motion to accept the minutes, May 7th minutes. Is there a second to that?
Rob Mann, I'll second it.
So Jim's got the motion and Rob Mann has the second. Any changes to these minutes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so that carries 6-0. May 11th, does someone want to make a motion to accept the May 11th minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes.
So Jim's got the motion. Is there a second?
Rob Wurge, I'll second it.
Rob Wurge has the second. Any changes to these minutes? I have a couple of changes on page 2 near the bottom. It talks about reducing the town line for health insurance by $32,171. And the vote says motion carried 4-1, but it actually carried 4-2. The other item that I wanted to change, it's on page 3 and it's under, it's talking about the education budget reduction of $83,000. And it talks about how I mentioned looking back at the last 5 years. It says 5 years to determine the average reduction the voters have put in place, but actually it was not the average reduction, it was the average annual increase that the voters have approved. And so it says finding that the reduction from the proposed, and so I would change that to finding that it increased by an average of $287,000 per year, increased over the previous year. And so then finally it says currently the proposed reduction is, and I would change that to say currently the proposed increase over FY20 is. Any other changes to these minutes?
This is Steve. This is kind of a picky little thing, but I notice on a copy of the minutes that there actually, there's a footnote and it says March 11, which is typically the date it's either printed or
Oh,
prepared.
yeah,
And I doubt it was March 11 for May 11 meeting.
that's right. We should change that too. It's a good thing to point out. Thank you, Steve. Any other changes to these minutes? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes with the changes that have been mentioned here, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 6-0. So then finally, May 14 public hearing. Does someone want to make a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes, Jim Bellavance.
So Jim has the motion. Is there a second?
This is Steve.
Someone
I'll
wanna
second it.
that?
I'll second it. This
Thanks,
is
Steve. Steve's got the second. Any changes to those minutes? All right, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the May 14 public hearing minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That carries 6-0. Move on to correspondence. I'm not aware of any correspondence that's come to us since the last time we had an actual meeting. If I'm wrong, someone please let me know. Like correspondence from the outside. I know sometimes we'll get an email from Orla with like the numbers that are coming, you know, the finance numbers, but correspondence from the outside. That doesn't fall into the category of citizens' comments.
This is Steve. Aaron, I assume that the correspondence with the Board of Ed will be covered under new business. Item
Yep.
9. Thank you.
Yes. Good point. Anything else that I'm not remembering here? Okay, so move on to citizens' comments, and we've got some emails to read. 2 or 3 of these were submitted prior to, let's see, like one is May 14th, one is May 14th, one is May 15th. So this goes back a little ways. I think a couple of these were intended to be read at the public hearing, but they were submitted late in the day. So our radar screen didn't pick them up, so they're being read now. So I'm going to go in order as they were received. So the first one is May 14, 5:31 p.m. Subject schools. It says you should be putting more money into our schools, not taking away money. As an owner of a rental property, I know our school system attracts new families to the area. We need to be bigger and better to keep bringing these people and new businesses in. We need to focus on the education of our youth for our town and for the world. This is Kristen Pro. P-R-O-U-L-X. Kristen, or Prue, I think that might be pronounced Prue. Kristen Prue, town, just says town resident, doesn't say what her address is. Next one. This is from Jennifer Boblitz, 15 South Shore Road. This came in May 14th, 6:18 p.m. To whom it may concern. I was recently made aware of the proposed $840,000 cut to the education budget for the upcoming school year. As a lifelong town resident and parent of 2 children on the umbrella of the Thompson Public Schools District, it is my opinion that this proposed cut is untenable. Not only is it an egregious disservice to our children, especially as we are already an alliance district struggling to close the gap on student learning, but it is also an impediment to the development of our small, struggling rural town. If elected officials continue to bend the will of those who simply don't understand the benefit of how taxes support the community, we will not be able to attract new families with healthy incomes to the area, and we will be doomed to the continued recession of our already lackluster industry. No major retailer wants to open a store in town where young blood is sparse, and no family wants to settle in a district that is deemed an alliance district. Also, as an educator, I have taught in the Thompson Public School System as well as in Massachusetts districts. I can tell you firsthand that the availability of current faculty development opportunities, up-to-date technologies, and clean, safe buildings conducive to optimal learning continues to elude the Thompson Public School District and pales substantially in comparison with other more fortunate towns. Though I must commend Superintendent Smith on her visible efforts to make these things happen. Dr. Smith cannot, however, experience true success without the support of the community, and that includes fiscal support. Ultimately, it is my strong opinion that any cut to the school budget be reconsidered through a broader contemporary lens that emphasizes the importance of education, as it not only impacts children and families, but the community at large. Okay. Next one comes to us from Erin Peckham. This is May 15th, 9:40 a.m. I'm writing to express my concerns over the current budget cuts to the Thompson Public Schools. I am a mother of 2, 1 student in elementary and 1 student in middle school. I am also an educator myself, working at Pomfret Community School. Year over year, I think everyone expects there will be some minimal cuts to the school budgets. However, the cut to Thompson this year would have a major impact on staff and students. Now more than ever, the students need all the support they can get. This budget cut would surely mean staff reduction, as well as cuts to certain programs such as sports, extracurricular activities, and so much more. Staff and children will need that, especially in the upcoming school year. This pandemic has taken a social and emotional toll on everyone, but especially the students. The focus should be on how to reduce the budget in a way that will not have such a huge impact on staff and students. With the possibility of schools reopening with social distancing measures in the fall, that budget will ensure there are adequate staff and programs for both in-person and distance learning, as well as possibly implementing new programs, some that may cost the schools this year as far as the distance learning goes. Okay, again, that came from Erin Peckham. This one is May 20th, 12:44 p.m. This comes to us from Jeffrey Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. It says, I'm a little disappointed in the change of format for the public hearing on the budget. Every budget meeting before this, all comments, whether emailed before the meeting, said during the meeting, or entered in the chat box, were discussed in the previous meeting. The public hearing changed all of that, where only mentions were previous emails as well as any verbal comments in the meeting. Many comments were not read from the chat box. What if one of those that entered into the chat box did not have audio capability? Like Steve Herbert was having issues with his. I do understand the chat box can get unmanageable at times, but in previous meetings, everyone was spoken for. I do feel the chat box could have been handled better by specifying that these Zoom meetings are running just like a regular meeting, and for citizens to only type during the citizens comments section or Q&A. As for the citizens comments, we as citizens are allowed to point out how we feel. Now, I am a little disappointed in some of the Board of Finance members that use that time frame to bring out their points if they are citizens of the town, but there is a reason there is members' comments versus citizens' comments. The only thing we can see when a Board of Finance member talks during citizens' comments is how they truly feel as they want to take up valuable time for citizens who have their own concerns. Knowing we had limited time for comments that should be given to the citizens, the board is setting a budget for, considering anyone who has followed the budget progression understands where the cuts are. No need to give another example of it and waste citizens' time. On to the budget. We go through this every year. Each and every time cuts happen, is it necessary? Yes and no. I get it, especially in today's financial climate. Every mention for this year is due to the virus and unemployment rates. Did you know, Thompson, there are only 123 continued unemployment claims as of May 3rd, and that number is steadily going down as the week before was 162. So with a workforce in town of 5357, we have a 2.3% of the town population claiming unemployment. Even if we take the total unemployed at the end of March of 202 and add, we have 325 total, a percentage of 6.1. All figures from Connecticut Department of Labor of Research, which states town based on address provided by claimant. It has been 2 months. Businesses are starting to reopen. People are going back to work, and even if they aren't, many are working more than they would working due to the $600 per week extra thanks to the federal government. Looking at an article from the New York Times, those on unemployment in Connecticut are making around 108% of their normal wages. Should they be putting that towards their town taxes? Maybe, maybe not, but we can't really be blaming unemployment and people making less to make these cuts. As stated previously, how about the last 5 years where unemployment was at an all-time low? Why the cuts then? Also, it was mentioned that the commercial business sector is getting a break on their evaluations. And looking at the numbers on many of the properties in town from the Thompson GIS map, there are many that have higher valuations, just like many of our residents, including one with an assessment increase of $252,400, and many others in the $25,000 to $75,000 range. So I don't see how commercial entities are paying less in property taxes. Are some? Yes, but the majority also saw an increase, which is similar to the personal property side. Don't forget you make an improvement to your home or business or add equipment, you will see an increase in value. In the end, our business sector is a lot smaller than the rest in the region, so we don't see huge benefit. Do we want to be a veteran community, or do we want lower taxes? We can't really have both. In the end, do I want to pay more for taxes? Not really, but I also understand in order for our town to thrive, we need to support it with the proper funding. In all aspects of the budget, town and education, an average increase of 2 to 3% per year is not going to cut it. Okay. And this one is dated May 21st, 4:33 p.m. This comes to us from Justin Young, 12 Fairway Drive. To the Thompson Board of Finance, I am not able to attend tonight's meeting, but wanted to present some comments to the board and the community members that are attending. Over the last several weeks, there has been a lot of discussion with regards to the school budget. A petition was started on change.org by me in an effort to persuade you, the BOF, to change your direction with regards to the cuts to the school and the town budgets. As of this afternoon, there are 791 signatures. So far, about 500 of those are vetted, registered voters in the town of Thompson. I have included a PDF of the petition and the signatures to be entered into the record. Although we are not able to have a referendum this year, this petition, along with the comments and attendance of the BOF meetings and workshops, should serve as an indicator of where the voting citizens of Thompson would be on the issues. I believe if we were to have a referendum on the budget this year, the citizens would have voted in favor of responsibly funding the school and the town, even if it meant an increase in the mill rate and subsequent tax burden. to the citizens, regardless of the outcome, please don't give up on the town of Thompson or its schools. We should be proud of the involvement that we have had this budget season and should continue to push for the future growth and prosperity of Thompson, Connecticut. Respectfully, Justin Young. And so just for the record, I did forward this to our secretary because he did attach, he had 2 attachments to this. One of them had the signatures that he's collected so far. So I forwarded this to our secretary so that it can be entered into the record. Okay. So that's it for emails that I've received. If someone wants to speak, they're welcome to enter their name into the chat platform and they will be unmuted so that they can share additional comments. Looks like Jessica Bolte would like to speak. So if she can be unmuted, that would be great.
Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. I wanted to put a comment on the old business line of adding an additional section of citizens' comments. As we've seen in the meetings previous and those coming now, we have seen an explosion in resident participation, and leaving only one session does not allow residents to make their voices heard in a small amount of time that's allotted. Further, that session is put before any of the additional agenda items in the meetings, which means residents are not able to direct comments about any of the items that's being addressed in that current meeting. It's leaving them to wait until the next following meeting, which is not allowing citizens to participate productively. And that's it.
Thank you. Looks like Brittany Charbonneau would like to share comments. If she can be unmuted, please.
Hi, guys. I just actually wanted to touch on that. If citizen comments are allowed at the end as well, I appreciate you actually hearing that and allowing that. The other thing I just wanted to kind of reiterate is I know that I've been pretty vocal the last couple meetings about kind of what my voice is and many of the parents in town. And I just want to make sure, even though the participation this round obviously isn't as much as it was in the last weeks, just keep that on the forefront because that's very, very important and very close to my heart. So, right? Yep. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. And Brittany Charbonneau lives at 56 Juliet Ave. Does anyone else want to share comments at this time? Anyone else want to share? Okay, it says Christine Campbell would like to speak. And so Christine, when you do speak, could you do us a favor and let us know your street address?
Hi, this is Christine Campbell, 861 Thompson Road. I just would like to thank the Board of Finance for all the hard work this budget season. I know it's not pretty, it's pretty ugly at times. Going forward, I don't know if there's going to be any more discussion about the budget, but I would love for a zero increase, to have a flat budget. That's my desire. We're going forward in this uncharted territory. No one knows what the repercussions are going to be in the future. Down the line, we have no clue where we're going, where we're headed. So I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work. I do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments? So it says Sylvie Henshaw would like to speak. And so Sylvie, can you do us a favor and let us know what your street address is when you're unmuted?
Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, Sylvie.
Yes.
Oh, 33 Black Madowns Road. Great, thank you.
That's correct. So I'd like to make some comments about what was said the last meeting towards a couple of the board members of the Board of Finance. I'd like to begin with Rob Mann. Rob, you mentioned at the last meeting that there are parents who can't speak as they experience retributions from others in town for having a different opinion in regards to the school, and that recently a board member was harassed. But I'd like to enlighten you. Do you remember in May of 2017, Rob continued to send me texts through Facebook instant messaging about how much my property taxes were increased if the budget passed. We continued back and forth with me telling him it's not his concern as to whether my property taxes would increase and by how much. His reply was, and I quote, "His job was to help people determine their own decisions." End of quote. He told me that he reached out to over 200 people with their information, with me being one of them. I told him it's not his job to go into my personal business, tell me how much it will increase, and it's inappropriate. He ended the conversation with, quote, "I won't message you again," end quote. And what does he do? He messages me again last year. I posted this encounter on Facebook to warn others of his doing, and they all acknowledged that he reached out to them as well. In addition, Rob claims that he's supportive of the school. And what's interesting about this statement is a few years ago, when I was an elementary school PTO president, he refused to approve any of the posts on Thompson Transparency page regarding anything about the school. And when him and I went back and forth, he said that the school has nothing to do with the town. Now, the next one is to Rhonda. You stated that you have a child in the school system, and that you also stated that without proper funding, we can't move forward, which I agree with you. In my opinion, I feel you've given up on the school, therefore, you're not voting in favor of the school. So Rhonda, why are you giving up and not voting in favor of the school budget? You also stated that you're a solution-based person. So with that said, do you have a solution to how to get the school budget passed? The community members who do want it to pass make every effort to get the word out via Facebook, flyers, speaking at the board meetings, etc. And as Val stated, and I quote, "Cancerous facts are put out there to create issues in a negative way, and that's when people have a problem," end quote. Cancerous is difficult to contain, especially when it metastasizes. The people who want it to pass are having difficulty containing these cancerous facts. So again, Rhonda, do you have suggestions on how we can contain this? In addition, this is the parents who don't support the school budget. Here's food for thought. When your child or children need extra help in reading or math and the support's not there, and you have to get a tutor, now what? Will you be able to afford a tutor? And if you can't, then your child may fail and stay behind. Then what? Whose fault is that? The school? Even though we may have a loss of more staff for the school next year, which will be needed to support such matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments? So it looks like Sean says, "I'd like to comment." So Sean, can you do us a favor and share with us your street address?
Yep, Whittemore Ave, Thompson, Connecticut. I knew Justin was going to be presenting his petition. I just, prior to your June 1st, I believe it's your June 1st meeting that you'll be finalizing the budget. I hope everybody does some homework. I've attended every single Board of Finance budget workshop this year. And one thing that has been said over and over and over again is that you represent the people, and what the people have said, they can't vote this year. So it's your job to do what you think they would say. And I think this budget workshop season has shown what the people would say this year. You've got a petition with almost 800 signatures, and you've had overwhelming support of the school budget during these budget workshop citizens' comments. So I would hope that you would do exactly what you have said you would do this whole season, which is do what the people have asked for. I don't see how anybody can, in good conscience, look in these cameras and say you're doing what the people are asking for if you don't properly fund the school this year. So between now and June 1st, I hope you give a lot of thought as to how you're going to go about this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, Sean's last name is Brissett. Kathleen Herbert would like to comment, and Kathleen's address is 122 Wilsonville Road.
Yes, good evening. I would like to thank all of those parents and citizens of Thompson who have voiced their support for the school. I'm, as you know, my second hat is chairman of the Board of Education. We looked at the history starting last June, going through the pain of the many referendums it took to get the budget passed. And we looked and we discussed among ourselves, what would it take? We need to get a budget passed on the first try. We started a grassroots movement. We went to the PTO, we went to the parents. We started with, among ourselves, how do we get a budget passed on the first try? This isn't just happening now. This happened a long time ago. After we finally got the budget passed last year, we sat among ourselves and we reached out to the community. And we started this grassroots movement about how important the school is to the community. And these are people who heard us and unfortunately can't go to the polls this year. So if we were able to vote, you're looking at history. This is the present. This is the result of a hard work that the Board of Education has, and the administration of the schools, the teachers, everybody, the parents have finally gotten together and realized we need to do this. And all of a sudden the rug was pulled out from all of us. You can't look back at history in this situation. It doesn't tell you what's happening now in the town of Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments at this time? Any other citizens' comments? If you'd like to make a comment, you can enter your name and street address into the chat window, hit enter, and you will be unmuted so that you can share your comments. Any other citizens' comments at this time? Anyone else? Okay, it seems like there's no one else. If I'm wrong, this is your opportunity to put your name in and hit enter. Okay. We'll move on to Selectmen's update. First Selectman Amy St.
Good evening, Board of Finance members. So a lot's going on in the town hall. We had to make some decisions as far as how we were going to handle the hours of the town hall, etc. We have been operating full staff, full schedules, unlike some of the other town halls. So today we held a department head meeting to have some discussion, and what I proposed and what everybody's accepted is that the town hall will remain closed to the public until June 29th, at which time we will open by appointment only. We feel this is the safest way to maintain control and to be able to maintain strict sanitizing procedures without adding additional staff. We'll reevaluate the situation every couple weeks as the COVID-19 crisis continues to evolve, and hopefully we'll be opening up completely in the near future. This past week, the Long-Term Recovery Planning Committee was formed. The committee is comprised of various people representatives from the community, including the school, Teague, the Thompson Business Association, Housing Authority, and I had asked Jill St. Cyr and Larry Groh Jr. to co-coordinate the efforts of the committee. The object of the committee is to identify gaps that may exist during the crisis and post-crisis, and then seek to mitigate those gaps and address the issues and create or find solutions to help make people whole again after the crisis is over. So it's really just beginning is our feeling, but we want to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse. So right away, Jill St. Cyr, the day after our meeting, had started forming a survey for us. The survey is live. It is on our town webpage. I really would like as many people as possible to take the survey. It's a quick 5-question yes or no survey with a section for comments at the end. It's really important that we get as many people to take the survey as possible so that we can get the best data as far as how people are being affected at this point with COVID. My plan is to put out another survey maybe a year later, so we can again continue to monitor and make sure that people's needs are being met. People that may be forgotten, the middle class worker that maybe lost their business or is struggling, like we're struggling right now with G7 Catering to find a new way to do business to make up for all of the jobs that we've lost this summer. So so the survey is really important, and I really hope that as many residents as possible will go on our webpage and take the survey. So at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday night, I acknowledged that it was EMS week, so I'm acknowledging it again. Our EMS workers work very hard. They're very dedicated. They don't do it for the pay. They do it to help out our town, to help out people, and they really should be commended. Additionally, I found out that it was Public Works Week. So I feel terrible because I didn't know it was Public Works Week. And Thompson has a phenomenal Public Works crew. And I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to them for all their hard work. They do a lot to keep Thompson beautiful, and they're a small crew. So in addition to taking care of our roads as best as they can in our parks, they also maintain our transfer station, which is loved by many residents. So under the leadership of Rich Benoit, they're doing a phenomenal job, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart for all that they do. Lastly, this coming Monday, it's Memorial Day weekend. I know it's going to be a different kind of Memorial Day weekend, but I spoke with Elmer Preston. I started speaking with him about almost 2 months ago when all of the COVID-19 crisis was really starting and the shutdown was beginning. And Elmer and I talked, and I said, no matter what, Elmer, if we can, let's move forward with some type of a parade. And I kept my hopes up, and even though we can't have a traditional parade, we are going to do a car parade. We'll begin lining up at 8 a.m. at both the high school and the middle school parking lots. Please come join us, decorate your car. The parade will kick off at 9 a.m. It will head down out of the school parking lot across to Main Street, and then it will loop around back onto Riverside Drive, past the town hall, and it will end at the medical center. The veterans will still be gathering after the parade to lay wreaths at the various cemeteries and do the ceremonial protocol that they've done in years past. At that time, we really probably don't want to have a lot of residents attending that. It's a shame, but we do want to maintain social distancing. But I just wanted to remind everybody that, yeah, Memorial Day is a great day off, and it's going to be a beautiful weekend, and we'll be having barbecues. But let's also remember what it's about, and it's about honoring those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to give us the freedom so that we can be here tonight and we can be contributing and expressing our voices and being heard. It's really, that's what Memorial Day is all about. And I'm grateful for my freedom, and I'm grateful for this country. And yeah, so I hope as many people can participate as possible on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for the first selectman?
Jim Bellavance, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim.
Amy, I know the last time we spoke, you were mentioning that you're dedicating the last half of your time here into trying to find businesses to come into the town. If you are interested in any additional help, I'd be more than happy to serve with you.
Absolutely. So I'll be in touch with you then at the beginning of next week.
That would be fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the first selectman? Anything else? Okay. We'll move on to school district update. Superintendent of Schools, Melinda Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I want to give you an enrollment update. Currently, our enrollment holds steady. We have 971 students. We're down 1 student from last month. We did have a student move out of district. At Mary R. Fisher Elementary School, there are 432 students. At Thompson Middle School, there are 322. And at Turtle Up Memorial High School, there are 217 students for a grand total of 971. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Amy St. Ange, our first selectman, for the partnership that and her leadership for the teacher and staff parade that was held earlier this month, and also for the use of those 2 vans because those 2 vans have been in service to the school department. The district has served 13,332 breakfasts, 13,332 lunches for a grand total of 26,664 meals since March 16th to the community. And I can't thank Food Service Director Lisa Durand and her team for all of the work, along with our custodians and our security staff that has been working really hard to make sure that meals are served out in the community. We serve on a daily basis about 250 meals, a breakfast, and 250 lunches per day. We also need to thank Jill St. Cyr from It Starts at Home. It's a nonprofit organization that she started in partnership with our Father's Table. Every Friday, a very nice weekend meal is given to our families. This week it's roast chicken and pasta salad, but they've been really wonderful meals. And, you know, a lot of the community members donated to her cause, and we can't thank her for all the work that she's done for the community. Our distance learning continues. As always, our educators and our paraprofessionals and everyone involved in making sure instruction happens in Thompson Public Schools, I need to extend a thank you to them. The one thing I want to bring to your attention tonight is that we got a release of a draft of summer school rules and regulations from the commissioner and the governor's office. And one of the things that Commissioner Cardona told superintendents is this list of rules is a precursor for what may happen in the fall when schools open. So when I read through this guidance, and it says rules right on the cover, and so I imagine there will be non-negotiable rules. Some of the things that I'm concerned about in this document, which is going to have an impact on the town and a negative impact on the budget, it says that there must be bus monitors on all buses. In Thompson, we do not have any bus monitors. We put a couple on last year just for security purposes, but we don't have monitors on our buses. Face masks must be worn by students, faculty, and staff at all times. And if someone comes to work or school without one, it's up to the district to provide that. Hand sanitizers and dispensers must be in every classroom. There needs to be a limited number, and in this document, it actually shows a diagram, a limited number of students per bus, which looks like no more than 20. So if you think about that, most of our buses hold, the big buses hold between 70 and 74 students, and we can't have more than 20 on a bus. What will that mean? Will that mean additional buses, more runs? All of that translates into dollars. Additional requirements are going to be made around disinfecting the bathrooms and common areas frequently, which will have a negative impact on staff. And then also meals will need to be served in the classroom. And that means that people have to transport meals back and forth, and that certainly will have an impact on staff. So the list in this document, and this is only a precursor, just seems endless. And without any news of funding, by the way, no one's saying that the state or the federal government is going to help support local towns. But I needed to make the Board of Finance aware that these are some of the things that might impact us on reopening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Questions among members of the Board of Finance for the superintendent?
I have a question, Rhonda Rooney, Board of Finance.
Go ahead,
Melinda,
Rhonda.
do you have any idea when they're going to release any funding, like the FEMA or anything, to help you with all those additional requirements?
So we do know, like I said, I mentioned last week, we do know under the CARES Act that the district is going to receive $132,000. We've spent around $47,000, $48,000 just to keep distance learning and the meal program running. And so Bob gave me some information today that we've been keeping a separate spreadsheet on all expenses that are COVID related. So everything is on that spreadsheet, but he told me today that there might, when we request reimbursement, it's not going to be 100% for each thing. So some things might be 40% reimbursed and others might be 30. So we haven't gotten clear detail on how we go about putting the application in. The district has to apply for that money. Even though the allocation is there, we still have to apply. But my concern is that, we've already spent half of it, even if we get that reimbursed, and I don't think it's going to touch some of the expenses. We looked at purchasing 2,500 cloth masks, and at the current the current rate, it's $17,000 for 2,500 cloth masks. So when you start to think about the expenses that are going to be incurred, it's mind-boggling. We do have a committee, and I'm fortunate to sit on Amy's committee as well, thinking about, reopening and what the impact is going to be. But, and I'm sure superintendents are going to all band together to raise their concern about some of these expenses that local towns certainly can't afford. And we don't know if there's going to be any funding behind that. But the 132 has been published. And so that is the amount that we're expected under CARES Act. But no other funding has been discussed for these type of expenses. And I'm sure it's still in the very infancy stages of what these rules are going to look like in September. But, just even some of those recommendations scares me budget-wise, for sure.
So just a quick question. The monies that you have has already been allocated. Was that supposed to be earmarked for like the distance learning, and maybe possibly there'll be another batch coming for summer school and maybe another batch coming for school openings? Or is that something that you think that's the total amount you're going to get for everything that they're basically, making us do?
Yeah, some of it is for staffing. You can reimburse up to a certain % for technology. We were lucky that we were able to amend our Alliance budget, our Alliance district budget, and be able to purchase touchscreen Chromebooks for our preschool K and 1 classes. Those are due to come in. So next year, every student will have a device. And if we don't open up and we continue distant learning, I'm confident that Thompson Public School, every student will have a device because they allowed us to amend our budget. But there's been no discussion, at least that I have seen, unless Bob knows otherwise, that there's any other money coming except for that 132.
Thank you.
I haven't heard of any other money coming at this point either. I was just on a call today with the COO of the Chief Financial Officer of the State Department of Education, and she didn't know of or speak of any other money coming besides this, besides the CARES money.
Thanks.
Just a question on the CARES money. I mean, it seems like they would, and again, I'm not the president, but it seems like they'd want to help the employees of the school as well, just like they did with other businesses, but you're not getting any aid in that department for payroll reimbursement? Thank you.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Anyone else?
I have one more question. Sorry, Melinda.
It's okay.
If they do talk about distance learning, again, for the fall, which I'm not big on, only because I think that the kids aren't getting enough interaction. And is there any talk, if they were to do that, that they would still have some kind of sports or some kind of arts going on outside that, stuff that they can't really get distance learning? Or is that something that they're going to do distance learn as well? Like,
So I know Deb Spinelli attends frequent CIAC meetings. Nothing's really been determined. I think even on our own reopening committee, we're planning for both. We're planning for school to reopen and what all the logistics are behind that. And then we're also planning for distant learning. But I believe that if they, and this is just my assumption, so don't quote me, but I believe that if they keep us home for distance learning, that will probably impact sports as well. I think the reopening has some logistical concerns for implementing team sports, but I think there would be ways to work around that. I'm hoping. I know just the disinfecting of the equipment, a labor-intense situation after kids use the equipment, especially in football. Just think about all that equipment. And who will do that? Will the students do it themselves? You know, and so there's been a lot of conversation around that in our committee. But I believe that, and I strongly feel that those sports programs, if they are able to be offered, we should make sure they're offered, because kids do need those activities for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to financial report. Finance Director Orla McKiernan-Raftery.
Thanks, Aaron. So we didn't get to meet last month, but we will be discussing the first 10 months of the fiscal year today. I shared the document and financial reports with the Board of Finance yesterday. Our property taxes are at 16.941, and I believe that is the report that was shared. Bear with me 1 second, I can give you the percentage where we are. Okay, that brings us to 98.24% of budget. Our current taxes are higher than last year by 140,000. Prior year taxes lower by 11. Interest and liens are also lower by 14,000, and motor vehicles are lower by $6,000. We received the ECS funding during the month of April, 3.767 million. It's the last third and fourth part of the ECS school funding. On local revenue, we're at 780,000. We're 44,000 less than we were this time last year. And expenses, we're close to where we were last year. We're committed of 6.05 million. Our cash has increased based on receiving the ECS money by 2.4 million versus last month. However, we're 1.86 lower than we were this time last year. We don't have a lot of changes to surplus. Did anybody have any questions?
Questions for the Finance Director? Anything for the Finance Director? Okay. Thank you, Orla.
Thank you.
Turtle Out Fund update. I don't know
There
if
is
there's
no
someone.
update, Aaron.
Okay.
We haven't met since February.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to new business. Board of Education request for supplemental appropriation in the amount of $351,477. Is there someone logged into this meeting who can speak to this.
I believe Kathleen can.
Okay, if Kathleen can be unmuted. It looks like she's still muted. Oh, looks like she might be unmuted
Okay,
now.
okay, thank you very much. You received my second letter where the amount, now this is an estimate, of course, because we haven't closed the year out. I sent you the backup that backs up to the 351 per your request. But what wasn't included is that we are negotiating with DATCO now. Per the governor's executive order 7R, we are required to pay all our contractors. And that includes DATCO, the bus company. And we're negotiating with them. They have come to us with an offer of paying them 80% of our contract. Woodstock and Plainfield have settled for that number, but we are trying to do some due diligence with them and have requested documentation to so that reflects the number. That 80% get what, you know, we want some backup that 80% is an actual number that reflects their costs, their actual costs that they're still incurring now, because you know that they've laid off most of their drivers. They promised they would bring them back, their drivers back and their back office costs. And we requested information that backs up that this 80% is a true cost to them. They've been reluctant to give us those figures. And so we're waiting for those numbers to come in. Also, so we have estimated that if we do settle at that 20% savings, that that would mean from March 13th, when we actually shut the school down, to June 17th, which is the last day of school, that would be $92,851. So that reduces our estimated 351 to $258,626. Keep in mind, this is just an estimate, but we are, as the law requires, we are giving you a 30-day written notice that we are projecting to be in deficit of at least $258,626,000. And the detail, the line item detail is attached to you for your records.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the Board of Finance on this?
Rob Wurge, Aaron, I have a question, an initial question.
Go ahead, Rob.
Could Kathleen or someone provide a little more detail or context around the line item under pupil transportation in the breakdown? I recognize that you're negotiating that, and
well,
I would do the same. I would do the same. I think if they're not paying wages, if they're not buying fuel, if they don't have repairs and maintenance, if they don't have mileage on their vehicles, they should definitely come to the table with an outline of what their real kind of burn rate is while they're not providing any services. But that aside, Kathleen, that line's showing a $327,000 shortfall to budget already. Even if the 92 is realized, it's still some $235,000 over. I would have thought something like transportation would be fairly predictable on a budget line, because you know how many pupils and how many days we have school, etc.
Okay.
So one second, I'm getting to the final end of my question.
Okay.
So what's driving the big delta already outside of the negotiated 92,000?
I'm going to let Melinda handle this one. because we
Okay.
both know the answer to this.
Yep. So when we put this budget together, when we put the FY20 budget together last year, we based it on the number of students that we had in out of district placement. At that time, there were 16 students out of district. From that point forward, we added another 10 out of district students. And some of those students are on singleton buses. So the reason that there's a delta in that line is primarily because we had vans, individual vans, sometimes with only one student on it, going to an isolated out-of-district placement school. Chris Jones, our pupil service director, was hired last February. So the budget had already started. He's just coming up upon a year. But since that time, he has been working on bringing some of those students back into the Bradley on-site program. And as he's been doing that, he has been able to reduce some of the extra costs in transportation. One of the things I want to remind the Board of Finance is that in August, I started to report a deficit in the special ed line that was up over $500,000. So we have been trying to make programmatic changes. The item that you can't bank on in transportation and special education is because of the numbers of out-of-district students that come in and out of the district, and that number in transportation always fluctuates. And this year, with the additional 10 students, meant that many more vans, and just one van, the annual charge for a van is $65,000. So it adds up pretty quickly. Chris, I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything to that.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for having me, everyone. So like Superintendent Smith alluded to, typically a van taking one student to a location anywhere in Connecticut is roughly $65,000 per van. Because the sites are spread out all over Connecticut, it's forcing us to put single students alone on a vehicle, and they're dispersed all over the state. With that being said, we embarked upon an initiative by bringing Bradley School into the halls of Thompson Public Schools. So we have an out-of-district provider working on site on our campus. So by having the students segue through that program rather than transport them at sometimes an hour away somewhere in Connecticut, we have the children that are able to be in this program take a general bus with typical peers, be in school with typical peers, in a out-of-district placement, but again, it's in Thompson Public Schools. And then, the hope is over time, as you're doing this in the context of the environment, you're able to fade out support of the Bradley School, the clinical environment, and you're able to slowly, with data, be able to segue the student back into classes with typical peers. So that in itself, by doing that, would certainly, the goal is to be able to provide positive outcomes in transportation and out-of-district tuition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members of the Board of Finance?
Rob Wirch, it's a quiet group, Aaron. I have a few more. I didn't want to dominate the question platform, but if no others are going, I have a couple of other questions.
Go ahead, Rob.
And part of it is just maybe getting level set. But some of the other line items that jumped out, both in pure dollars and percentage missed, were significant. So if you look at the line item under pupil services, that's off 76. The base budget was 68. That's more than 100% over. What would drive that line item to be more than double?
That's the same conversation. A lot of it is the students that we have to place out of district, either in the Bradley program, and we usually save on a little bit on tuition and transportation, but it's primarily that. And then we have had an increase in students with disabilities in the district overall, and those students have needed additional on-site support. Chris, what's the total number now versus last year of students with IEPs?
When I had started, to start the year, we were at 178, and right now we're right on the spot of 200, but however, we have 11 that are depending eligibility, 11 incoming birth to 3, so that puts us at 222. It's roughly 22% of the population.
Right. So, I mean, the costs associated with that are usually primarily the big ticket items, Rob, are always the out of district and the out of district transportation. But in addition, we've had to put in paraprofessionals, on-site counselors, contracted services. So you pull all that together, and that's why that number is such a large increase.
Yeah, it's really the you know what the cost is, but maybe the unknown is the amount of people that need the service, and that's I get the budgeting process and then the reality of what you're hit with in as you go throughout the year. So please don't take my questions as saying it shouldn't be. That's not the intent. Yeah, it's usually the things that you commented on are what happens, and they're items that pop up. My last one was around the building repairs. I'm trying to find the item. Building repairs and maintenance. That had a very similar story. It was about 120 and it landed at about 240, so about 2x. Was there something there that we weren't aware of at the start and then things kind of happened, or what drove that delta?
Well, one of them could be, and Bob will correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there was a lot of overtime associated with the flu for disinfecting. So that number we always run over in custodial staff and overtime, primarily because of that. Bob, I don't know what are the other items that force that to go increase. You're muted.
Basically, I'm going to pull up the exact line items for you, Rob, if you could be patient with me for a second.
Wasn't there a couple of boilers or something?
There was between two lines in and the two lines were a wash. One was general capital improvement, which was 126,000 over, and then building repair and maintenance, which was $129,000 under. So between the two of those, the difference is about $3,000 if you add those two accounts together.
Okay,
So
I see capital outlay. Capital, I'm talking, Rob Wurge, if you go to the second.
Yeah, I've got it. I got it, Kathleen.
Yeah.
So it's capital improvement versus building repair and maintenance. It was just how things were categorized. The expenditure between the two accounts was, if you add them together, it was almost on budget.
Yeah, this is clear. Same discussion we had earlier about repairs versus capital.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, my last comment is not a question, but I didn't jump on the ones that are the other way. And there's a number of items, particularly around salaries, that were controlled very well and actually came in at a surplus. So I do want to recognize that as well. While I picked on the ones that were underwater, there's 4 or 5 line items around secretaries, nurses, teachers, coaches, etc. I think the coaches were driven by lack of sports, but still, there's good signs of cost management on those items as well. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions from Board of Finance members?
This is Steve Herbert, Board of Finance. Just a reminder, Melinda's mentioned this, but she's been warning the board all year that we're running into big issues in terms of the cost, due to special ed costs. So this is really not a surprise if you were sitting at these meetings for the past virtually 12 months. So again, it really isn't a surprise to me anyway that we've had this issue. Melinda, I actually thank you for giving us the warning on virtually all year.
questions from the Board of Finance? All right, I have a few questions. I believe the Board of Education's FY20 budget, including the $55,931 that the Board of Finance gave to the Board of Ed in November for, it was spring sports, field trips, supplies, and some other items. When you include that, the total FY20 budget for the Board of Ed is $18,693,513, right?
503.
503. All right.
Yes, 18,
Off.
693, 503. That's correct.
Okay. So of that, how much has been paid out to date?
I believe if you look at the spreadsheet that we gave you, year-to-date, total year-to-date expended, 14,155,167. This comes right from Munis.
Okay. And so what do you have in open purchase orders at this time?
So we're in the process of closing those down. The only expenditures we're spending right now are obviously payroll and graduation expenses. But Bob, you might want to answer that. You're muted.
Aaron, right now we have 4,889,813 in encumbrances.
Mhm.
That is salaries. There are certain contracts that are allowed. We make their payroll lower during the year so they can continue to get paid during the summer. That money is encumbered in fiscal year 2020. So the bulk of that is in the payroll accounts. We've been reviewing purchase orders now. We usually do it around June 1st and started shutting down purchase orders. The big ones as far as supplies and stuff like that are going to be almost all closed down. What you'll see is and if you give me a second, I'm going to tell you exactly.
But the fact remains, you took that into consideration with that number, correct?
Yeah, of that 4.9 million, 3.4 is benefits and payroll.
How much was payroll?
To benefits and payroll, it was 3.443.
And so how much is in supplies and services?
Supplies and services is almost flat, but I mean, we still have oil payments, which is, we still have, for example, and it's going to sound like nickel and dime stuff, but it's not. But you've got like electricity. We still have another $48,000 in electricity encumbered, another $17,000 in heating oil, another $17,000 in gas and diesel. We still are paying, we still have $424,000 in special ed tuition. In pupil transportation, even if it was at full boat, it would still be $780,000 left in transportation. So the bulk of it is in, in stuff that's employee related. Again, this number might go down somewhat, but as Orla could tell you, or anybody else has ever been a business manager for a school district, sometimes there is an S factor that pops up towards the end of the year that of expenses that you didn't anticipate. And I think that we're running into that with some of the COVID stuff. There's money that we're spending that out of the cafeteria that we hadn't been anticipated. And how much of that is reimbursable is for another discussion from the State Department of Education.
So you mentioned some portion of that is employee related. How much is not employee related?
Well, if 3.44 is employee related, then 1.4 is not. I'll give
So
you.
1.4 million
Yep.
is not employee related in purchase orders and supplies and services. 1.4 million is not employee related.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Now I think the Board of Education received $200,000 in municipal stabilization alliance grant funding back in October, right?
Correct. And that money went to fund a special educator at Turtle Rock Memorial High School and a reading specialist at Thompson Middle School.
Got it. And then I believe that there's more alliance funds arriving soon, right?
So the alliance money it is a grant of $400,000 that May Flexer worked really hard to make sure that we got an allocation this year. We, as you recall, last year we did not receive any alliance funding. We are an alliance district that doesn't get the regular funding because of the formula that has been developed to determine alliance allocations. So this year she fought hard and got us the $400,000. We have to, that is not an offset to the general budget. That is to fund an improvement plan for the district because we are below state average in our test scores. So what ended up happening is that we had to submit a plan that was approved, and for professional development, curriculum resources, technology, curriculum work. So that plan was put in and approved, and that money will be spent by June 30th. And it has to go toward all of those activities. They did allow us to amend the budget. Actually, on Teacher Parade Day, Bob and I spent time amending the budget so that we could purchase technology for preschool, kindergarten, and grade 1, as Mary Fisher didn't have one-on-one devices. The only schools that did were the high school and the middle school. So they allowed us to amend that budget for that. But those monies are allocated right to that improvement plan, which has to be accepted by the commissioner.
Got it. And that's $400,000 coming soon?
It was. And
Okay.
I believe Walla told us today we finally got it. And the scare was that we had a signed MOU and we had to be spending the money, and we were very concerned that it hadn't been deposited in our town account yet, but it's there now, so we feel a lot better.
Great, thank you. Now, when it comes to special education reimbursement from the state of Connecticut, you've already received $342,000 so far. Is that correct?
For an excess cost, Bob, that's the right number, right?
Yeah, we've gotten everything.
We've gotten everything.
And so how much is everything?
I'm going to give you an exact amount.
And remember, Aaron, that we actually included that in our budget for FY20, that amount of money.
$342,284.
Got it. And so is there any additional distribution coming at this point forward?
No.
No.
So it's just 342. You're not going to get anything else for FY20.
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that the COVID-19 stimulus funds, if you will, that's $132,000.
Yes.
And then is it my understanding that there could be a possibility of applying for emergency funds from FEMA at some point later this year, so that it's possibly could be awarded before the end of the federal fiscal year on September 30th. Is that a
I
possibility?
I know that Orla had sent me some information on that. I was on a call today with the CFO of the State Department of Education. Most of that money is towards disaster relief and more of emergency management kinds of things. Although there's some things I want to talk to Orla about some of the things I'm getting some information on some emergency management distribution on thermometers sent to me that is coming through the State Department of Homeland Security. But most of that FEMA is most of the FEMA stuff, as most FEMA stuff is oriented towards town as opposed to education.
Now, if the town qualifies for FEMA emergency funds, am I wrong? Would some of that also be shared with the school in a situation like this with the COVID-19 emergency?
It would have to be specific to town, it'd have to be specific to Board of Ed expenses and outlays.
Okay. So, so I'm just thinking about, right now you're talking about $258,000. When I look at a budget of $18,693,000 and change, $258,000 is, at least by my math, that's 1.38% of a $18,693,000 budget. That doesn't seem like a significant delta, 1.38% when you put it from a percentage standpoint. So I guess, you know, I'll go ahead and ask, what is it? What are you going to do at this point? You know, today is May 21st, and there's what 40 days left in the fiscal year. What are you going to move from fiscal year 20 to 21 so that you can help to make up for this $258,000? What is it that you could say in purchase orders that you could close out now and then reopen them in fiscal year 21 to help you free up the 258, this 1.38%, which from a percentage standpoint is not a huge sum. What is it that you're taking a look at shifting so that you can potentially solve this on your own? I guess that's my question.
And I might go to jail for it too. You can't. You have to. Your bills are incurred in the year that you have to pay your bills for the year that you actually incurred the expense. I review the invoices, reviewing stuff now to say this is we're not even going to begin to use this stuff until fiscal year 2021. All right, but anything that you use during 2020, anything that you buy and it is used during 2020 has to be paid for in 2020. It's not like that was one of the biggest adjustments to come from private industry to the public sector, is that you can't carry over an expense for a previous year. So for example, the summer payments of the teachers who worked from September to June is still in fiscal year 2020. And it's the same way with any other expense. You can't, in Canterbury, they lost a superintendent and a business manager very recently because of doing that same thing, taking expenses from one fiscal year and paying for the next fiscal year. So I wouldn't recommend that.
Well, we can't do that, but I think I know what Aaron's trying to get at, is that there are some purchase orders that we're not going to we're going to be able to close out. I think we took a lot of those purchase orders into consideration before Kathleen sent the letter over to you, Aaron. You know, certainly maybe that number will come down, but I'm going to tell you that it won't come down to zero. That's for sure. So I don't believe we're going to be able to cover that deficit, and that's why we wanted to make sure we brought that to your attention. I will say it could have been a lot worse, but due to the due diligence of the people that work for the town of Thompson Public Schools, and especially under special ed, we brought that number way down, but I don't think we're going to bring it down to zero. That's for sure. But we are not allowing any expenditures moving forward outside of things that need to operate that building or things that we need for operation for COVID time. But, and for graduation, we are having a graduation ceremony. But other than that, I'm not allowing teachers to complete their purchase order purchases. We're starting to shut those down. Probably in another couple of weeks, we'll have a better idea of what that number is, and maybe it'll come down a bit. But I just don't want anyone to think that we're going to be able to absorb that 1.3 or 1.4%.
Got it. And so I guess maybe my question to clarify, because the number that was shared a few minutes ago was that I think it was 1.4 million in open purchase orders are not payroll related. I just want to clarify, because it sounds like Bob kind of answered it one way and then Melinda kind of answered it a different way. So I'm trying to sort of understand which way is the actual way.
Can I pop in here, please? Okay, 424,000 was in special ed cost, which we are contracted to pay, because they're still supplying services. That's per the Executive Order 7R. 780,000 is for the transportation. In other words, our contract with DATCO, that's less the 92,000. So 1.2 million of that 1.4 million is contract costs that we have to pay. So that leaves us $200,000, of which 48,000 is electric, 17,000 is gas, and the other 17,000 is heat, possibly, that we've already incurred. So now we're down to 100,000, which would be, we're going to incur overtime. We're going to have to buy supplies for cleaning supplies. We're going to have somebody taking care of the, we're still paying overtime for the janitors. We're paying other costs. We don't know. That you're leaving us with $100,000. That's the most we could make up, the most, and that's not going to happen, Aaron.
So my question was, it sounded like Bob answered kind of one way and Melinda answered kind of another way, and so I'm just trying to get my arms around what's the actual way. If there is an opportunity to find some savings, as Melinda seemed to suggest, then where are those savings? Is it the $100,000, or is it more than that? Where are the savings?
I don't think there's going to be. I know you're looking for each line and what kind of savings there's going to be, but overall, I don't believe there's going to be any savings against the bottom line. And I don't know if I'm addressing that correctly.
I agree, and Catherine's analysis of where we're actually at, it comes down to the point where almost none of the budget is movable at this point in time. As far as I pulled out in my own calculations just the supplies, for example. We had it's just, but some of those savings have been offset in an account that have been offset by COVID expenses, and not knowing when that money is going to come is going to put a it's going to put a dent in that as well. I think that Melinda and I are speaking the same thing. It's the budget is what we got left is wicked tight. We wanted to give you the snapshot from a month ending snapshot so you could actually see where it is at that time. But you know as well as I do, it does go up and it does go down as expenses go as we start to close as we close POs.
Aaron, can I ask a question?
Okay, I just wanted to, just before we shift gears. So just continuing on that line, I just wonder if you're in a situation where you're coming to the town, you're saying we have a deficit of $258,000. Does it make sense to keep paying custodian overtime? Does it make sense to purchase supplies that may not be crucial right now, that could potentially be purchased in fiscal year 21? Does it make sense to say we're going to go ahead and spend these dollars over here when you're asking the town, you're coming to the town and saying we're in the hole 258? I guess it's a question that's kind of stuck in my mind. That's all.
Yeah, and what I was trying to say, Aaron, is that we're not allowing any purchase orders to go through unless it's a critical expense. And so therefore, teachers are not able to, if they hadn't already purchased it before we closed, we're not processing those purchase orders. But there are expenses just because of the additional activity that we've had to incur. We've had additional COVID expenses. We're trying to tag all of those and make sure that we get reimbursed for them. But as far as any open POs, we're not allowing any orders being processed. I sent that information out to the teachers a couple of weeks ago. We're holding our line, and we're certainly not spending money nilly-willy. Love nothing better than to come back next month and say that there isn't going to be a deficit. But I've been warning the Board of Finance since August, since the budget really wasn't adequately funded, and so we've been running deficit ever since. Due to the increases that we saw in special education, but we've been running deficit all year. It's down to that particular number. It might go down a little bit more. We'll certainly do our best to hold that line, but I just want you to know that we're not nilly-willy spending money.
Completely understand. And so on your thought about the budget not being adequately funded, I do recall that we had 5 referendums last year, and that we came in with a higher request on the Board of Ed side in the first referendum, and then the second one we went out with the same exact request that was shot down by an even wider margin. And then subsequent referendums, we had to shave down to get this approved. So I realize that there may be some folks who come away from that experience feeling like something was underfunded, but it nevertheless was the will of the voters, and so the voters at referendum have the final say, and so when they tell us what they're willing to give us, we kind of have to work within the parameters that they give us. And so I guess it's a difference between subjective and objective. I think of objective is when the voters give you a number, that's pretty much it. They have the final say. You and I and anyone else, there's nothing we can do to say, no, voters, you didn't really mean that. What we want you to mean is something else. They meant what they meant, and so we have to work within those parameters.
I totally understand that, but the voters, nor you nor I, can predict the number of students that are going to move in who have special education needs, and so that's something that none of us can predict. And what happened this past year is we had 10 students enter our district, plus others with need, and that really compounded the issue. And nobody can predict that, and regardless of what budget that's ever passed, if we have an influx of those students, we do our best to manage it, but there's federal law that supersedes any of that, and so those students needed those programs and they had to go there.
Thank you. Rhonda, you had a question?
Yes, I did. On the items that were encumbered, the 4,800,000, I understand you had mentioned 3.4 is salaries and so on. Out of that, other numbers, transportation and so on. Are there any areas in that category that have been encumbered where we can negotiate the contract, or that you haven't utilized the full service, such as which you did with the transportation? Are there any other areas that we can work with and possibly negotiate something down on any of those?
So the answer to that is no, because the out-of-district placements are providing distance learning. And so we are still obligated to pay that full tuition, and there isn't a negotiation with those particular contracts. The only one that we are in negotiation with, and the Board of Ed is right in asking for backup documentation, is the bus contract. And so we're waiting to see if they're going to provide us with the information that can have us look at the employees and their costs there in relation to the 80% they want to charge us. So we are holding pretty steadfast on waiting for that documentation, but that is the overall.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to add too that they did come to us in August, and I do appreciate the fact that the costs have gone down and you've worked hard on that, on the special ed category.
Thank you.
Questions? Questions?
Are we making a motion on this today, or are we going to wait a little bit longer until we have some more solid numbers?
Is that a question to me? Aaron McGarry?
I believe so, yes.
I don't anticipate making a motion for an amount of money that we don't know for sure at this time.
Thank you.
Aaron, maybe you could help me. This is Steve. Maybe you could help me out. We've gotten a letter from the Board of Ed, if I understand right, requiring us to fund this, or just begging us?
I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if it's requiring or begging. Maybe you could enlighten us, Steve.
No, I don't know the answer. I'm asking.
Maybe that question is better directed at someone who has the legal authority to answer it.
Well, I thought you had talked to our the town attorney to get some understanding of that, but I guess I misunderstood.
That's right. That's right. And the extent of the town attorney's advice is encapsulated in a letter that I sent to the attention of Kathleen Herbert, and I forwarded it to all the members of the Board of Finance.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already seen the extent of the legal standing that I have at this moment in terms of my personal knowledge.
Thank you for that.
Pleasure. And so I guess I just have a couple of closing questions, and maybe it's more of like a homework assignment, if you will, if you can help me. If you can help me to understand to what extent you put a hold on non-essential purchasing and or projects, to what extent you put a hold on non-essential contractors that didn't have pre-existing contracts in place. If you can help me get my arms around that, and you may not have the answer to that tonight, but it would be helpful if you could give me some indication of to what extent you did that this year to sort of to potentially head off a potential looming deficit that you first became aware of back in August. That would be appreciated.
Yep, we can do that.
Any other questions at this time?
This is Steve Herbert, Board of Finance. haven't you to some degree already done that by giving us this detailed description of where you've spent the money versus the budget for the year? Haven't we gotten that from you in all honesty? I guess this is for Melinda.
Well, you have everything that we have spent, all the money that came in and went out and where it went. That's our full financial that Bob prepared to this date. Obviously, school ends on June 17th, and we usually have invoices that come in through probably the beginning of August. You know, we'll still probably have some outstanding invoices, but right now, as it stands, you have a full financial picture.
So you've basically given us your estimate of what's going to happen, and at the moment, I know this. You guys have run a tight ship. I think it sounds a little bit like I'm thinking as the board are asking you to look again. But I'm concerned that we're asking you to do what you've already done, unless the numbers you've given us are not accurate.
I believe they're accurate. But I think Aaron was asking, you know, what of those contracts have we, you know, tried to put holds on? How have we hold non-essential spending? Well, school closed on March 13th. We can certainly talk about what we spent from that date forward. We haven't done any spending that wasn't essential once the school doors closed down. But we have incurred other expenses. Like disinfectant and things that we wouldn't have purchased hadn't the COVID situation come to fruition.
Thank you for explaining that.
And so my questions were, did you put a hold on non-essential purchasing / projects? Did you put a hold on non-essential contractors that didn't have pre-existing contracts in place? And can you help me to get a sense of what did that consist of? How much did that total? If someone put a hold on purchasing or projects that were non-essential, if somebody put a hold on contractors that didn't have pre-existing contracts, that wouldn't show up in a list of dollars that were spent. That would actually show up in a list of dollars that weren't. I believe that's what my question is asking.
Okay.
So,
and Bob, where are you? You follow that, correct?
Oh, and yeah, I got it written down, but I mean, just an example, I'll give you a quick example, Aaron. You know, pest control comes once a month. All right. In April, I said, I'm not paying you guys anymore because you're coming out here. Oh, okay. So it's stuff like that, you know, copiers, or you pay, most of our expense in copiers is by the piece, the overage associated with it. So that is stopped. I'm working to get that percentage worked down, as to get a percentage of that money knocked off too, as to what we're paying on existing contracts, because the things are, you know, they're getting used somewhat. But, you know, stuff like that, even the smaller contracts, of keeping track of how much less electricity that we're using. We've only got 1 month in the bucket, but we've used 25% less off-peak kilowatt hours. We're using less water. You know, that the water expenses has gone down. So it's stuff like that. You know, and then there's other expenses that we're kind of locked into. For example, transportation fuel. You might think that we're not going to have to spend any money on transportation fuel, but that stuff is all pre-bought, you know, to get a better price on it. So I'm not thinking that number is going to go down that much more. Same with the heat. We sell it back. But it's not, or we get a credit for the following year for it. But it's not going to, stuff like those kinds of contracts, I've been reviewing those as we've been going along too, to try to get those knocked down.
Great, thanks. And so I just want to clarify that if you put a hold on spending something, it doesn't show up in a FY 2020 spending list because it didn't get spent. So that's what I'm trying to get my arms around.
Right, it would be an encumbered amount.
Right.
If the encumbrance is, if we close the PO for it without spending the money, then the money that we need is less.
Or just not encumbered at all, to say, you know what, that's something that we can survive with this thing or that thing. We can survive without these things over here for another 3 months, 6 months, whatever. I'm just trying to get my arms around the things that you know, if I can just get a sense of what it is that you put a hold on. So then that helps me to understand how much of an effort you put into getting ready for this moment, getting ready for the end of this fiscal year, when we knew 8-9 months ago that there was a problem looming. Just want to get my arms around where you put a hold on things so that money wasn't spent that could have been spent.
That's how we get down to 258.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
So then I guess,
yeah, we've been thinking about,
it sounds, okay, so then, so does it, so then it sounds like there weren't any?
I'm sorry.
Does it sound like, it doesn't, so that's how we get down to 258? Does it sound to me, if I'm wrong, let me know, does it mean that there wasn't a hold put on non-essentials?
No, here's the issue. The issue is the reason that number came down is because the programming changes that we made around special education and the fact that we strategically, when we had to put a child out of district and they couldn't come into the Bradley program on site, we tried to cluster children into the same schools so that we wouldn't have additional busing impact. So it was very intentional on the part of our pupil service director and I to minimize those costs in special education, because at the beginning of the year in August, we were like $550,000 over, and we've done a good job pulling those numbers down by making those changes. So that effort has been happening all year long. And to the credit of Chris, you know, he's been seriously working on that day in and day out, like other items. We never overspend unless it's something essential that we have to have. So we're at a point now where we're just bringing that to your attention that we're still running deficit. As much as we've done over the course of the year, we couldn't mitigate that deficit. But we can certainly give you a list of the things that we have done. Chris is here. He could certainly, for another hour and a half, go through everything that he's done in the special ed realm to bring costs down. But, you know, we can certainly list that out for you.
And that's why I said I know that going into all this right here and now is eccentric, and that's why I said, is it okay if I share just a little bit of a homework assignment so that you can at least, because, you know, I'm just sort of, I'm on the outside looking in. I'm sort of the common person with the common person's perspective, and I'm just trying to get my arms around this, that's all.
Yep, totally get it.
Thank you. Any other questions for representatives of the Board of Education on this?
Not a question, Aaron, but just a clarification. When Melinda, this is Rob Words, Board of Finance. Melinda, when you were closing around putting that list together, while it would be good to see all that's been done and a lot's been talked, so we know that a lot has been done, to make a $550,000 problem a $250,000 problem. But I think it would be even more impactful to come forward with what else can happen, what else can be done. And I heard comments of we've done everything, and maybe we have. I'm not living it every day like you all are, but this is a time to continue to push again another round. And if there's another 8,000 or another 58,000, whatever can be had through renegotiation, through, you know, being you know, pushing back on some of the open POs to say we can't, we don't need it, we want to cancel it, etc. I think it's worth another round. And if you go through the other round and you come back and say, we tried, folks, and it's still 250, then it's 250. But I think it's a fair question to ask, to go back again and push again to see, because if you know, in a lot of cases, if you don't ask, you won't get. So I push yet again, even though I know you have many times throughout the year.
And we're certainly happy to do that, and we will definitely go through that exercise. The one thing I just want to remind everyone, while we're closed for COVID, there are expenses that were unbudgeted that we have had to absorb, and whether we get reimbursed for those is really still up in the air. But there have been expenses that the district has had to absorb. And those kind of run against any of the, closing down the POs. We'll go through that exercise for sure. It's the right thing to do anyway.
Aaron, can I?
Go ahead, Rhonda.
So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do that again. To alleviate that.
I'm
Rhonda,
sorry,
can't
this is
quite
Steve. I
hear you.
can't hear you. Okay, sorry.
Can't hear you, Rhonda.
Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Can you hear me now?
A little better. Yeah.
Better. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to go through this again. We really appreciate it. And for you to continually work on this to keep your expenses within budget during the year. So I just want you to know that doesn't go unnoticed. We do appreciate that. It's very difficult for us with these budgets, or for me, with the 5 referendums that we had last year. If my memory serves me correctly, and I do forget quite a bit, in order for the money that you did get, the increase over the previous year, I believe we had to even take that out of fund balance or out of some other account that we had, so to put a flat budget out to get it passed. So for Aaron and us to be asking these questions, we really want to be sure that we're as close as humanly possible to what was given to us by the townspeople, because that's what our job is as the Board of Finance, is to kind of, be out there representing the people. So, and I do understand, I wish, people wanted to support more, but unfortunately it is what it is at this point. So I just wanted to put my appreciation out to you, and also to commend you for working within that budget, because I think the increase last year was only about $150,000.
Any other questions or comments from members of the Board of Finance on this item? Okay, thank you to representatives of the Board of Education. I appreciate it. We'll move on to old business. Citizens' comments on the Board of Finance monthly meeting agenda. Does someone want to speak to this?
This is Steve. Maybe I'll start off. We've had a number of members of our audience, citizens of the town, who have mentioned the fact that they would appreciate an opportunity to comment both at the beginning of the meeting, which helps us listen to them and perhaps modify what we do during our meeting, as well as at the end of the meeting, so that they can comment on the things that have transpired during the meeting. As was mentioned in the comments earlier today, they don't get a chance to talk about something that might have come up during the meeting until the following, typically a month. This gives by having the ability for citizens to make a comment at the beginning and at the end of the meeting, it would give a better communication. And I think one of the things our town is wanting is communication, better communications between the citizens and the boards, between the citizens and our government. And by having the ability to make comments both at the beginning and at the end of the meeting, I think that just is a basic improvement in the communications that we provide to our citizens. I think that's the basic reason why I think the citizens have asked for this. And again, I think helping to improve the communication does nothing but help. It helps us pass referendum if citizens can share their feelings with us, in an appropriate time. I understand that if citizens' comments drag on for hours, it would be a problem, but I think, maybe that's manageable by limiting it to comments only on what was discussed during that meeting, or some other ways. But I do think, improving communications and facilitating communications it's a good thing for our town. I think it does no harm and can do a lot of good.
Anyone else?
Rob Mann, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Rob.
I think that all the citizens that request for these extra citizens' comments do attend every meeting. So if there's a motion in a meeting that they're concerned with, they could comment before the motions are made, which would make more sense to change the opinion or the direction of the Board of Finance. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Aaron, Rob Wurge, if I could weigh in as well.
Go ahead, Rob.
First up, I having gone through this now, my first partial cycle, I think we certainly, and you particularly, have been very patient with the 3-minute time allotment per person, and oftentimes that goes on longer. I'm not stating that as a complaint that it shouldn't. I'm just commenting that I think you've been very generous with that time frame. You also pause, give time for people to get acknowledged through the virtual meetings, et cetera. So I do feel like we, and you in particular, are making sure that all voices are heard. I think if we're going to go back through again and have another section of voices being heard, I could be open to it if indeed it was new comments or new thoughts. What I don't want to do is go through a 2-hour meeting. You know, we're all very, very focused, hanging on to every word and trying to follow everything, and then go back through and have somebody say, well, you know, like I said earlier at the beginning of the meeting, and you know, they may not like the outcome, and we have the comment again. It just doesn't. It's not productive to hear the same comment over. And I understand people need the time, and I support people having the time to make those comments. I just feel like if we have it at the end, it should be for a new or additional thought that could help. That could help us. A new additional thought, but not a time to just restate again kind of what was already stated at the front end, because then we're really kind of prolonging the meeting at that point.
I agree.
I hope that was quasi clear. I kind of got a tough time frame in that one. I'm getting to my expiration time.
So Rob, this is
Anyone
Steve
else?
again, and I would agree with you. I think it'd be nice to be able to limit it to only, you know, something relevant and not just a rehash of what might have been said earlier in the meeting. But I know that communications within our town between the citizens and the board is something we need to do better at. And I think this is a little step in helping that.
Anyone else?
Aaron, Rhonda Rooney, I just wanted to say I do agree with Rob Wurge in that I've been attending all these meetings, and I think that even with the citizens' comments that we've heard over the past 12 weeks from meeting to meeting, I think that a lot of those comments are identical comments. So to duplicate the comments at the beginning and the end of the meeting, we've heard them. So it's not like we're disregarding them or we're not recognizing them. We've heard them. So I have to agree with that. And I'm not trying to prevent communication. And I think that, Steve Herbert is right that we do, there are people that complain about the lack of communication. I just don't think it's particularly in this area. That's my personal opinion.
Next, if I might just add, this is Steve again, I might just add an additional comment. Again, I don't want the meetings to drag on all night more than anyone else, but a Board of Selectmen manages to be able to do this. The Board of Education manages to be able to do this. I don't think it's, I think people will regulate themselves. Not everybody, there'll be a few offenders, but in general, I think that they would understand that we don't want to drag on all night and would limit their comments. And the chair can step in and suggest that a comment has already been mentioned or something like that. But clearly things do happen at our meetings, and it may not be what somebody expected to when they came to the meeting, but they might want to speak to it, when the meeting is over. And I think that's fair.
So just to clarify, the chair would be delegated the judicial task of deciding whether or not a comment is appropriate and whether or not to shut someone down.
I think you probably could exercise that right now, and it's if there's somebody who just is going on and on and on and on, you use the 3-minute rule, and we haven't been using it on the Zoom meetings, but you've used the 3-minute rule when we've had our public face-to-face meetings. I don't understand why it wouldn't be some degree of ability to manage it that would some reasonable degree. So so that we're not going on forever any more than whether it's at the beginning or at the end or both. I think, again, I'd like to see communications get a little bit better and at least make efforts in that direction. I think the citizens would appreciate it. We've had a number of comments about, from citizens that they would like to see something like that. And I don't think it's unreasonable to do that.
And so if I just clarify, there's a very small handful number of citizens who have expressed their thoughts or perhaps complained, maybe would be a better way to describe it, that providing citizens' comments at the beginning of every meeting is insufficient. They've used phrases like a limited amount of time and, not enough opportunity to speak. And I would respectfully disagree because, as Rob Woods pointed out, I think I've been more than accommodating. I think every single citizen's comments section of every meeting I've said, any more? Anyone else? Just open up the chat button, put your name. Anyone else? Anything else? And pause. And it's quiet. And so I feel like what a handful of people are saying is that's not okay. That's not good enough. But now what I'm hearing from members of the Board of Finance maybe is that it's okay to have it at the end and have the chairman say, nope, sorry, I've decided that you've already said that, or someone else has already said something like that. And so I'm going to shut you down now so that I'm the bad guy. I'm the one who has to adjudicate that. I guess, to be perfectly honest with you, I have to say I kind of resent having that kind of buck passed to me.
Well, then don't shut anybody down.
With all due respect.
If this is Steve again, if you're unwilling or would not like to do that, it does put you in a little bit of an awkward situation. If you would not like to cut anybody off, then don't.
Right, and so then I'm coming back to comments from. Hold on, I'm coming back to comments that I heard saying, well, maybe we should have this if the person doesn't say something that's already been said or says something they haven't already said before. But if they, and so that's the spirit of saying, oh, well, let's have citizens' comments at the end. But if we're going to go ahead and have citizens' comments at the end and then not put guardrails on it, then I suspect it's almost invariable that we're going to get exactly what it is that we've just expressed our desire not to have, which is people either saying the same thing they said early in the meeting or rephrasing something that somebody else said after the fact, or perhaps just expressing their disappointment with the outcome of a vote that we took their comments into consideration, we discerned on them, and then we did what we felt, what each individual, 6 of us felt was in the best interest of the town. And then at the end, it's an opportunity for someone to say, well, here's what I didn't like about what you did. Here's what I think you did that's not good enough for me. And so I think we're going to be inviting exactly what it is that we're saying we don't want, because we're not willing to say, let's have the chairman shut down someone who's saying something that has already been said.
Well,
Rob,
again,
Aaron,
Go ahead, Rob.
No, I've spoken enough. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that some of the other boards in town, this is Rob Mann, Board of Finance, some of the other boards in town only allow discussion on agenda items that are in the agenda for that meeting. We've been pretty open to allowing people to discuss many things. So I think our citizens' comments that we allow in the beginning are more than sufficient. That's just my opinion.
Anyway, nobody likes
Jim Bellavance, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Jim.
Rob, I completely agree with what Rob's basically said. You know, we give the citizens top billing on every one of our meetings. You never seem to shut anybody down. You always allow people to state their comments and their concerns. Everybody has an opportunity. The citizens have that opportunity right then and there to talk with us, just like the selectman does, and the superintendent, and the financial director. As far as I'm concerned, the way we've got it right now is just fine. I think we're opening a can of worms if we have comments at the end of the meeting.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Aaron, Rob Wurge, I was going to jump in earlier. The way you described it would be my exact concern, is that if it's an opportunity just for someone to restate the same comment they made because they didn't like the outcome, then I wouldn't support that. But to clarify, it's not that I wouldn't want anybody to have to say something that's already been said. What I would want to avoid is having them say something that they have already said. So if 500 people want to come to our meeting to all support the same thing and they each want to talk about it, then they have the right to do that. I want to hear it, because one of the things I found very comforting is that as we went through the public hearing and other points of the budget workshops, and they were all done remotely, we could get a sense for kind of the gauging where the townspeople are, right? And this was in a sense a de facto vote, right? Because we didn't have a vote. Well, voices could be heard. So I don't want to, I certainly just wanted to clarify. I don't want people to misconstrue that. I think once one person says something, you can't say it as well. No, you very much can. But I think if we're going to open up citizens' comments at the end, there has to be some guardrails or some guidelines around it. Otherwise, I do believe we're going to get exactly what we're not wanting to get, which is a repeat of what we heard on the front end of citizens' comments.
This is
And
Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. Again, we have this fear that we're going to hear things over and over again at the end of the meeting. Again, the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen allow comments at the end. They don't have that problem. I think people at the end of the meeting are as anxious as anybody to, end the meeting. They maybe didn't like the way a vote went or something, but I think they're basically reasonable. Of course, will there be somebody who's unreasonable? Yes. Let's not base our decision on a fear that hasn't been realized at the Board of Ed or the Board of Selectmen meetings. Again, I just think we need to make overt actions to improve the communication with our town.
So I'm holding a copy of Robert's Rules of Order here, and I'm not aware of anywhere in Robert's Rules that says the chair or the speaker or the moderator of an assembly will only allow comments from members of the public as long as he or she feels that they fall within the guidelines set up by the assembly. I feel like creating this and saying, oh, well, we'll just put this guideline on here, and if the person steps outside the guideline, we'll just have the chairman, tell them that they're out of order. This really concerns me. Either you do it with the guardrails off or you don't do it at all. Because I resent being put in a position where I'm supposed to shut someone down. I think if there's one thing that I've tried to brand myself as is giving citizens an opportunity during citizens' comments, every opportunity to speak, every opportunity to express their concerns. Only very rarely do I say, geez, I really wish that people wouldn't, call out specific names. I think at the public hearing, I said, this is a small town. We all have to live together. It's only very rare that I say, and usually I'm just appealing to the better nature of people. I don't think I've ever actually shut someone down. And so I gotta say, I'm sorry to use the word resent, but I really resent if this board were to say, yeah, let's have a second round of citizens' comments and we'll just have the chairman decide whether or not to shut someone down. I really don't appreciate that at all. So I'm not done yet. So in addition, we do have an email platform, and we do get people who send in emails to us between meetings. And I think that works very well because when somebody sends in an email, I go ahead and I read it into the record for the following meeting. So I feel like if someone has a burning desire to let their opinions and views be heard after the conclusion of our meeting, they are welcome to go to the Thompson website and go to the section where they can send their comments to us, and their comments will be read at the next meeting. So there's no denying anyone the opportunity to express their views based on something that happens at any one of our meetings. Anyone else? Anyone else?
No, Rob Mann, I already stated how I felt. I think what we have now is sufficient.
Does anyone else have any comments on this before we move on? I know this is a hot topic, so I'm willing to give it a few more seconds. Okay, hearing nothing else, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Aaron, this is Orla.
Yes, Earl.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I didn't get in quick enough, but is it possible that I could add something to new business?
Or we can just put it under old business. I mean, we're under old business. So in order for us to change items on the agenda, we would just need to vote to go there. So I'll tell you what, I'll make a motion that we go back to new business. Would someone like to make a second?
Rob Mann, I'll second it. We go back to new business.
Okay, and so all in favor of going back to new business signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, so we're going back to new business. Go ahead, Orla.
Thank you. Apologies for the late addition. Also apologies for not getting this on the agenda. We've talked many times in the past about going out to RFP for the audit, and after I had a little break from the budget, I was able to compile our RFP again that I've been working on back in January. I haven't had it reviewed and approved by our attorney, and I guess my question would be, do I have the support of the Board of Finance to issue an RFP for audit services? And if so, I will do so next week.
Does this require a motion?
I don't think so. No, it doesn't. I just want to bring to your attention that it will be happening. What we did was we compiled the RFP based on the last RFP that was issued. It was actually back in 2008. And we revised it for compliance reasons and also regulatory additions. We've left the scope of work as is, and the request would be for a 3-year contract. I will happily share the RFP with the board members tomorrow. I'll email it out to you tomorrow morning. And when I'm back in the office on Tuesday, I will be compiling it. As long as I have the support of the Board of Finance to go do so, we will issue it on Wednesday, the 26th, I believe, or the 25th.
Fine with me.
Does any of the board
Go ahead,
members
Earl.
have any questions about this?
Questions from board members?
Rob Mann, Board of Finance sounds great with me. It's the usual procedure. We usually do, even we use the same auditor every year usually. It's still proper to go through the RFP process. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, we've been looking to do this now, and we've extended the contract with the current auditor quite a few times. And I know there's been an interest in going out to RFP and seeing other providers out there in the field.
Well, this is Steve. I absolutely agree. I think it should go out for RFP. It's a great move. Thank you, Orla.
Okay. So
Anyone else? Sorry, Orla. Anyone else? All right, sounds good. Go ahead, Orla. Sorry.
So I'll keep the Board of Finance clued in. The dates I am recommending is we're looking to give 2 weeks to get this information provided to the Board of Selectmen. We will go through the process as we do with any typical RFPs. As in the past, we're looking to combine a selection committee, which typically involves a member of the Board of Finance, a member of the Board of Selectmen, and the 2 finance directors. If anybody has any questions regarding that, feel free to email me. That's what I'm proposing at this time.
Sounds good to me. Anyone else okay with that?
Rob Mann, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
I am as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sounds like we're good.
Okay, I'll look
thank
forward
you,
to the
Orla.
email tomorrow.
Thank you, Orla. Anything else?
Aaron, would it be appropriate of anything else on that topic or anything else, period?
That's what I was wondering. Anything else, period?
I wanted to ask if it would be appropriate if I can make one more comment or request to Melinda and the Board of Education around the budget shortfall.
And that's fine because we're on new business, and so that's where it rested, was under new business. So your timing is perfect. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, and I promise this will be quick. Melinda and Kathleen and others, I just wanted to make this came to me late. I didn't think of it during the time when we were talking about it, but we mentioned the word contracts a few times, and I understand we have contracts. To the extent that, I know in the private sector, many companies that have had contracts have claimed force majeure in a time like the time we're going through with COVID-19. So I would just kind of put that on the table, that as you think about some of the contracts, there may be line items, extenuating circumstances, there may be an opportunity to go back to them due to the extreme situation that we're in versus ordinary times. So I'm not necessarily saying it is a force majeure situation. I'm saying let's explore that and let's look at that, because it's being utilized in other contracts in other areas. So I just bring that up. Maybe you've thought of it already, but if not, that may be another opportunity to have a different type of discussion on some of the obligations that we have out there.
Yeah, and that language doesn't exist in our current contracts. And currently we have 3 open contracts that we're trying to negotiate. And so obviously something to keep in the back of our heads when we're going through that process.
Okay. It's pretty boilerplate, so if it's not there,
Well, it
maybe
does.
it should in the future.
It does exist in our bus contract, but unfortunately, due to the executive order, we can't enforce that.
Correct.
All right.
On March 20th, we closed on the 13th. On March 20th, because that was in our DADCO contract, we sent DADCO a letter and said, more or less, we're not obligated to pay you during this closure. Kathleen, I think it was 2 weeks later, came out and said that we had to negotiate, and left each district up to their own devices to negotiate with a bus company that has been not very forthcoming. So it was there, but it's not in our labor contracts.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's worth exploring if you can. If you can't, you can't.
Anything else? Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Rob,
Was
man,
that
I'll
Rob
second
Word?
the motion.
Was that Rob Words making the motion?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Rob
so
Mann, I'll
Rob Word says the motion, and Rob Mann has a second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This one carries 6-0. Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.